least common.
I'm Dave Weed. I've worked on something called the Sowams Heritage Area.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and this is all about who lived here before any Europeans showed up here. Okay, and you have one of those, I'm sure. Okay, but these two paintings, this one here and this one over here of Usamiquin. Usamiquin was the Massasoit of the Pokanoket tribe who had lived here for 10,000 years.
What tribe was it?
Pokanoket. Okay, you've heard Wampanoag.
Yeah.
Because that's what people were taught for many years.
But it wasn't really, they were all part of that.
They were Pokanoket, and they were, after the King Philip War, the name was erased from the area. People who were Pokanoket couldn't say they were Pokanoket, couldn't speak the language. If you were a male 14 years of age or older, you could be shot on sight.
So even like the Massasoits and all that, they were Pokanoket, they were all part of that?
They were all Pokanoket.
Wow.
And if you go back to the early maps and the early history, or read Mayflower, the best known book about the period of time in the King Philip War, the book by Nathaniel Philbrick, okay, it's Pokanoket all the way through there, because he did his research and he found out that the name wasn't Wampanoag, it was Pokanoket. Wampanoag was added later on. So what we're doing with this Sowams Heritage here, Sowams is the name of the settlement where the Massasoit lived. This is a painting of what we think his winter settlement would have looked like. Okay, and you see all the different Weetus around here. Okay,
What are you calling them?
a Weetu. You want to explain what a Weetu is?
Yeah, a Weetu, not a teepee. Teepees would have been in the west. Here in New England or in this area, you had the Weetus in longhouses. The Weetus were generally for a family, a smaller family. The larger units, which were longhouses, where people had large families or families that had intermingled, and they stayed together in a larger.
But the Europeans would, in the wintertime, they go into a Weetu and say, "This is a lot warmer than our house."
Yeah. They know what to do.
The good thing is that they were portable. Okay.
Oh, wow. So they would take the sections out, looks like they're tied.
Those are mats. Yeah.
Yeah, those, so that's how they all
Somewhat
get in a
like
pot?
you see a depiction of the inside with the woven mats.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
And those would be carried from one place to another. Right.
The mats and stuff, yes.
Right.
And then they could rebuild Weetus, or excuse me, the longhouse itself if they needed to, because wherever they moved, there would be more access to trees and stuff.
Right, so they could do the frames again to get all the mats stacked.
So the European idea is you build a single house in one place permanently, and then you have to travel dozens, hundreds of miles to get the resources and to carry them to the house for hundreds of years. They have the right idea. You move your house to where the resources are.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, it actually is a smarter idea.
As I heard you say, this is the winter.
The winter
Some of the
settlement,
gardens,
right?
that- and then there's like pathways all around. It's a nice area.
And I wonder how
This is where, when I was in Rumford, I lived right down the street. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
you'd be perfectly comfortable on a day like this. No problem at all.
when in snow, hardly.
Yeah, they would survive because of the structure of the Weetu itself, and then also it was not built up. You didn't have levels, you only had a single level, so the access, the wind and the elements, you were protected by your surroundings.
Right.
That's why you would move to another area at a different season, because you could protect yourself, with what's around you.
What about the weather?
Well, you may have heard of Buckminster Fuller back in the 60s. He built geodesic domes, okay? First, the World's Fair in Montreal in 1968 or something like that, roughly in that period of time. But But all he did was just rediscover the Weetu, you know, the idea of a flexible dome structure that was mobile was all that he came up with. It's just another way to do that.
Well, look at our American Indians, the way they built the teepees in those days, even
Yep.
on the plains and everything.
Same idea.
It's the same.
Transport.
And they had to transport it, and they only had the horses, they didn't have the donkeys.
Yeah, they just
the
went.
Right.
transportation. They just made the caravan on the roads, on the fields or whatever it is, and they made the, just tied everything down.
Tied everything and dragged it along. Right.
Surely.
So it was,
I was wondering where you were, oh, I'm sorry.
that's all right.
I
So
was
it's-
hoping you were all right.
It's a very efficient way to live, let's put it that way. And this is about the painting, and there's another,
I love that, that
this
is
is
just fabulous.
well, take this home and you can read all about it.
All right, thank you.
There you go. Let me explain what you're looking at here. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. These are two paintings. This one was done just a year ago by an artist, Ruth Major, who we commissioned to do a painting of Sowams. Sowams is the name of the territory, the village, if you will, of the Massasoit Usamiquan. He's pictured in this other painting behind you,
Yeah.
also by Ruth Major. This was him as a young man. The sculpture, the picture you see on the cover there is when he was a little bit older. No one, of course, painted him at the time, so this is all what people imagine. We wanted to show people where he lived, and this is the winter settlement in a place next to Margaret's Rock. And that's a rock that was well known as the place where Usamiquan sheltered Roger Williams. There's Roger Williams over there.
But
Okay.
where was this?
Well, just north of the Warren line in Swansea.
Swansea. So it's right here.
There you go.
This Swansea right there, so it's right north of the wall.
If you go to Tim Johnson's Market on Route 136
Yeah,
there,
okay,
and you look across the road toward the east,
okay.
and down at the back of that field, that's where Margaret's Rock is.
Oh,
That's the rock there.
And that's the.
And we believe that there was a winter settlement there because we know that Usamiquan sheltered Roger for 14 weeks. Roger wrote about that very briefly, but we know that that's from his own words that he was there. And we know that Usamiquan isn't going to tell Roger, you gotta go out in the middle of the woods by yourself and survive and get pneumonia, okay?
Exactly.
He was in their settlement,
Sure.
okay? So that's where we had the artist go, and she
Sure.
painted that settlement next to Margaret's Rock. And did so by talking to a lot of people from the tribe in terms of how people lived and what that village and what would have been going on there.
Sure.
So if you take this booklet home and you can read all about the painting and descriptions of what's taking place in each part of the picture.
Sure,
And,
Yeah, tell me, yeah.
yeah, it tells the whole story there.
sure.
So this is a way for people to learn
About,
about the people who lived here far, far longer than any European, okay?
Exactly.
And lived here successfully,
Right.
okay? We're having a little trouble after 400 years.
A lot different.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
And this is that.
So, welcome to the 17th century. This is mostly about what happened before Europeans got here. Okay? Remember, the first settlement in what was East Providence then was Rehoboth. So it wasn't until 1643 that 40 people from Weymouth came down here. Prior to that time, this fellow right here and his people lived here. Okay, this is Usamiquan.
That's how you say it, huh?
Yep, the Massasoit. Massasoit is a title, so it's the Massasoit. The English first thought that was his name.
Massasoit's not a tribe name.
It's a tribal name, but it means great leader.
Right.
Right.
So the it's like saying the.
It's like the,
Yeah,
like,
it's
it's like the president. Okay, so you wouldn't walk up to the president and say, President.
Right.
Yeah. So this is Usamiquan, and this is his village over here. And this is a depiction of what we think the village, one of the winter settlements in Sowams looked like.
Where was this supposed to be?
This is next to Margaret's Rock, which you see up there, which is in Swansea.
Swanson?
Yep. If you go to Johnson's Market on
Yeah.
Route 136.
Johnson's roadside stand.
Roadside stand, and you look across the street to the east,
Yeah.
okay, and down that farmland, okay, at the very back of the farmland is Margaret's Rock. It's about a quarter-mile long, right?
Is there a legal one?
No, it's on private property.
It's just a rock, a big rock.
It's a big outcropping of rock, and at the end of that rock is what's called Margaret's Cave, where Roger Williams, the guy over there, was sheltered by Usamiquan in the winter of 1636. If Usamiquan hadn't taken care of Roger, he would have died, and we wouldn't have Rhode Island. Okay, plain and
Just told me
simple.
on the hike that Roger Williams lived over on Jamaica Pond.
Yes, but
Yeah.
he had several
That's-
settlements before he got
that's-
kicked out of Massachusetts.
Well, he got kicked out of Salem in January 1636. One of the worst winters. The bay was frozen over. It was that cold. 3 feet of snow. Walks all the way 60 miles, okay, down here. And some of Usamiquan's people found him and got him. He probably had triple pneumonia by that point. Took care of him. A woman named Margaret, but that's an
So that's where he
anglicized
stayed over there in
name
that
of
cave?
a native name.
He stayed in the cave? at
The
rock?
cave is there, right, at
That's
the
where
end of the
Roger
rock.
stayed in that cave.
Yeah, that's the story, that he was sheltered there, and then went up to Omega Pond and started his new farm there. But of course, Ed Winslow from Plymouth comes over and says, "You're on our property, you gotta leave." So here's crops are starting, can you imagine that? Your corn's about
Yeah,
this
your corn
high.
is- and you have to leave.
And then you gotta leave. I
So at
mean,
the time, that was still Massachusetts, so they kicked him out of Massachusetts.
it was
Yes.
Plymouth Colony.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
part
there
of
was, yeah, there was no Massachusetts until
And they told him to
later.
get out of Plymouth Colony.
They told him that he had to leave, so he came across the Seekonk River and then around
Gano
to...
Street,
Yeah.
Right.
India Point Park, well, not India
Well,
Point, but it's Gano Street, there's a monument for Roger Williams
Slate Rock
settlement.
Park.
Slate Park.
What did he
Okay.
do that upset them so much that they didn't leave?
Religious freedom.
He didn't think that the church should be running politics, okay? And
Yeah, I mean, I know I always heard about that religious freedom and
Right.
all that, but he did a specific thing that pissed him
Oh,
off.
just a number of things. He just preached against the authoritative version of how you're supposed to do religion. Okay, so that's where he left, and
And who made these paintings?
artist named Ruth Major. You can read about that here, and you can read all about the painting here.
Thank you very much for
You're
the
very
history
welcome.
tour.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
yep, anytime.